Good afternoon all. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Good afternoon, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay. So in the last class, just I have started discussing how to find out the limit of function of complex variable. So for that, first I have discussed what is the significance of limit and how we can geometrically interpret the limit for the function of one variable, one real variable, and function of two real variable. And in the last class, I have also told that I can use the properties of the limit for function of two variable while we will be studying function of complex variable, because for function of complex variable also like the function of two real variable, there are two independent variables. So in the same way we can actually visualize the limit for function of complex variable. Okay. So before I start sharing, so I have discussed the epsilon delta definition of limit in the last class. Can you remember what is the epsilon delta definition of limit? Have you forgot, or can you remember this? Sorry, I can't hear you. Have you forgot what is the epsilon delta definition? Or do I need to share? Do I need to discuss it again? Can you see the blank screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what is epsilon delta definition of limit? Just I am telling for function of one variable, then we will be incorporating these things in case of function of complex variable also. So what is the epsilon delta definition? Let's say we need to find out the limit for function of one variable x tends to x0 fx, and this is equals to L. Then the epsilon delta definition is that, so L is the approximated value of the function at x0, since at x0 the function is not directly defined. So this is the point x0, the function is not directly defined at x0, so the functional value is not here. So what we can do, we can take a small interval around x0 of length delta. If this length is delta, then this will be x0 plus delta, and that will be x0 minus delta. So here we can vary the value of the independent variable either from the left hand side of x towards x0 towards x0, or from the right hand side of x0 towards x0. Then whenever the limit will exist, we'll be finding that whenever we will be approaching from the left hand side of x0 towards x0, the functional value will gradually approaching from the left hand side of L towards L. That means from L minus epsilon, if this length is epsilon, to L plus epsilon. So the functional value will be in between these whenever we will be varying the value of independent variable from this end to this end, and the functional value will be lying here whenever we are varying the value of independent variable from here to here. So here if epsilon and delta both are small, both are very small and comparable, then we can say that the limit will exist and limiting value will be L, otherwise the limit doesn't exist. So I have given the example of this function x square by 4 by x minus 2. So here since at 2 the limit doesn't exist, sorry, at 2 the function is not directly defined, that's why we need to take the limit. So what we have done here, so let's say we are taking interval around 2 of length 0.001 to 2 minus 1, this interval. That means we are taking the values of x here. Then we will be finding that the values of fx, the functional value, will be lying in between, let's say here to here. That means this is the value of functional variable. That means here epsilon delta is actually 0.001, this is very small, and epsilon is say 0.0001. They are also very small, and epsilon delta are comparable because here epsilon is delta by 10. So in that case, we can say that the limit will exist, because whenever we are changing the value of independent variable around to in a small interval, we are finding that the functional value will also lie in a small interval around 4, and they are both comparable, and epsilon delta both are very small. So here the limit will exist. But for 1 by x, what will happen at x equals to 0? So let's say we are taking the length of delta, that's 0.001 around 0. So here delta is 0.001. So we are varying the values of x here. So in the last class I have discussed, so whenever we are varying the value of independent variable in between that interval, so the delta is very small, that means around 0, we are taking a small interval and we are varying the value of the independent variable. Then we will be finding that the functional value will lie from minus infinity to plus infinity. So here epsilon is very huge. So we are taking a small interval around 0, but we are finding that the functional value lies in a huge domain, huge region. So here epsilon delta both are not small, although delta is small, but epsilon is very huge and they are not comparable, hence they are not comparable. That's why at x equals to 0, the 1 by x function doesn't have a limit. But for this previous function, there is a limit at 2 and limiting value will be 4. So graphically we can incorporate, in generally we can visualize this in that way. We are taking an interval of length delta around x0, then the functional value lies in a interval in a interval of length epsilon around the value L. Then L can be considered as the approximated value or limiting value, hence the limit will exist. So here we can define this as, whenever the independent variable vary, x is varying in between x0 plus delta. So this implies actually x is varying in between x0 plus delta to x0 minus delta. Then if fx minus L, the difference of functional value between the limiting value is epsilon, that means fx varies from L plus epsilon to L minus epsilon, then the limit will exist. Otherwise the limit doesn't exist. Is that clear or not? Have you understood this?
Yes, sir.
Is it clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Then how we can incorporate the same definition while we will be studying the limiting value for function of complex variable, let z tends to z0, fz, let's say this is w0. So here z being a complex number will be x plus iy, and z0 is a complex number, so x0 plus iy0. Fz is a complex number, that is w equals to u plus iv, and w0 is a complex number, u0 plus iv0. So here the independent variable, around independent variable z0 we need to take an interval of we need to take some neighborhood of length delta. So here the same definition if we use, then if z minus z0 less than delta, if that implies fz minus w0 less than epsilon, where epsilon and delta both are small and comparable, then we say that the limit will exist and will be equals to w0 at the point z equals to z0. Now here we are varying the value of x from x0 minus x0 is less than delta. So geometrically it represents the interval around the point x0 of length delta. So if the functional value lies here, then we will say that limit exists. But here the independent variable is a complex number z. So here z minus z0 if less than delta, then if this happens, then it will be we will be saying that the limit will exist. But you know that in the case of complex number, the number of dependent variables are 2 and number of independent variables are also 2. So we can't represent all the four variables in a single frame. So how we can visualize this? So what is the geometrical, or what will be the locus of this equation? What will be the geometrical significance of this equation? Can anyone tell me? What does it represent geometrically?
Circle
This will represent the
inside
circle.
the circle.
Yeah, because z minus z0 is less than delta. So this will represent interior of a circle with center x0 y0, because if you break this, you can write this as x minus x0. If you break this and square this up, so you will be getting y minus y0 whole square equals to delta square. So we are taking two frame of reference. You know that geometrically, if we want to identify complex valued function, then we need to take a z eigenplane, we need to take a w eigenplane. We can take the independent variables in the z eigenplane. Then by defining a function fz, we can map each and every point that we are considering in the z eigenplane to w eigenplane, and this is the geometrical significance. So here also we will be taking two eigenplanes. One is the z eigenplane, another is the w eigenplane. So here the independent the real part is u and imaginary axis is v. Here real axis is x, imaginary axis is y. So we are considering, so in the case of a function of one real variable, the independent variable is varying from x0 minus delta to x0 plus delta. So since this is a one dimensional point, so this will represent a interval. But in the case of complex number, this represents a circle with center x0 y0 and radius delta. So we are considering one circle. So this radius is delta and this point the center is x0 comma y0. So what we'll be doing, we will be varying the independent variable around x0 y0 where we need to find the limit. In that inside of the circle, we will be taking the values of z independent variable here. Then you know that by defining the function fz, each and every point will be mapped to some points in the w plane. Now fz minus w0 less than epsilon. This also represents a circle, since fz is a function of complex variable that can be written in the form of u plus iv, and a w0 is u0 plus iv0. So in the w eigenplane, this will also represent a circle, u minus u0 whole square plus v minus v0 whole square equals to epsilon square. So if the independent variable that we are considering here in the z eigenplane inside that circle with radius delta and center x0 y0, if they are mapped to a circle with center u0 v0 and radius epsilon, then we will say that the limit will exist. That means here the independent variables we are considering here, and each and every point will be mapped to some points in the domain, a codomain. So if the corresponding functional values that we are getting lies in a circle with center u0 v0 and radius epsilon, where if delta is small, then epsilon should also be small and they are comparable, then we will say that the limit will exist. Otherwise, let's say we are taking the independent variable from here, then the dependent variable lies in a huge interval, so they are not enclosed within a circle with small radius and center at u0 v0, then we will say that limit doesn't exist. Otherwise, while we are taking the independent variable inside that circle, if they are mapped to another circle with center u0 v0 and radius very small epsilon, then we will say that the limit will exist. Otherwise, the limit doesn't exist. Was it clear? Is that clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then what are the properties? So the properties of the limit here are same as the properties of limit that I have studied in function of one variable. So limit of a function will be always unique if it exists. The limit of sum of two functions will be same as limit of the individual functions and their sum. Then limit of product of two functions is same as limit of each of the function and their product. The limit of quotient of two functions is same as limiting value of each of the functions and their quotient, provided the denominator doesn't have limit 0 at the given point. And then there is one more property, this is a very important property that is only valid for a function of complex variable. This property is not valid for function of real variables, because in the case of function of real variables, the number of dependent variable is always 1, but only here the number of dependent variable is more than 1. Okay, that's why here this property will be followed. So what is the property? Just I am discussing it elaborately. So previously I have studied how to check the existence of limit. Now let's say limit exists, and limit of the function fz whenever z tends to z0 is w0. So z is here x plus iy, z0 is x0 plus iy0, fz equals to u plus iv, v0 equals to u0 plus iv. Now while we are taking a function function of complex variable, this is z square, let's say. Let us consider the function is z. Now if you put z equals to x plus iy here and segregate it in real and imaginary part, you will be getting this. So a real part of function is a function of xy, and imaginary part of the functional value will be a function of xy. So you know that we can represent a complex number in the form of the order pair. So we can write this as xy tends to x0 y0 uxy plus ivxy equals to u0 plus ivz. This one. Now here as per this theorem, if this function of complex variable has a limit, that is w0, that is u0 plus iv0, then if this exists, then limit xy tends to x0 y0. So here real part of the functional value and imaginary part of the functional value are two functions of two real variables. So if this has a limit, and that is nothing but the real part of the limiting value, and this has a limit, that is this one, then actual limit will exist. So in order to find out the limit of a function of complex variable, you don't need to find it directly. Rather, if you can find out the limit of the real part of the functional value and imaginary part of the functional value separately, and if they exist, then by combining both the limit, you can actually get the limit for the function of complex variable arbitrarily. So this property only holds for the function of complex variable. So it will not be valid for function of real variables. Is that clear? Have you got it? Have you got it or not? If you have any doubt, you could ask me. Is that clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just I am giving one example, then I think it will be clear. So you need to find out the limit of that function of complex variable z square minus 2z plus 1, and at the point 1 plus i. So here z0 is 1 plus i. So for z0, the real part is 1 and imaginary part is also 1. And you need to show that the limit will exist and will be equals to minus 1. So how to show that? So here we'll try to find out the real part and imaginary part of the functional value. So we'll be putting here z equals to x plus iy, and if you segregate this in real and imaginary parts by using the properties of I, you will be getting this plus I into this. So this is your uxy and this is vx. Now as per this previous theorem, we need to find out this limit of the real part at the point 1 1, because here z0 has the real part 1 and imaginary part 1. So this point will be x0 y0 will be 1 comma 1. So since this function is directly defined at the point 1 1, so if a function is directly defined at a given point, then the limiting value and the functional value will be same. So here, since the function is defined at the point 1 1, so here the limiting value will be same as the functional value. So just we need to put here x equals to 1 and y equals to 1. So if you put it here, you will be getting minus 1. Similarly, if you want to find out the limiting value of the imaginary part at the point 1 1, since also it is defined directly at this given point 1 1, so just you need to substitute x equals to 1 and y equals to 1 in order to evaluate the limit. So this limiting value is becoming 0. Now what will be the limit of the original function? So as per the previous theorem, if you want to find out the limit for a function of complex variable, then just you need to find out the limit for the real part and imaginary part separately, and then by combining both you can get the limit of the original function. So here the limit of the real part is minus 1, limit of the imaginary part is 0. So if you combine both, so this will be minus 1 plus I into 0. So the limiting value of the original function will be minus 1 here. So in that way, if you are given a function with a complex variable and you are asked to find out the limit, then you don't need to find it separately. Rather, you know how to find out the limit of function of two real variables. So you will be finding out the limit for function of two real variables. Then by combining that, you can get the limit of the original function. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Now if we need to solve this kind of problem, that means you need to check the existence of the limit. So I have told you that here the number of independent variables in since are 2. So in order to check the existence of limit, we need to use the properties that we have used in the first semester. We have studied first semester how to find out the limit for function of two real variables. So same thing you will be applying here, because you know that while we are trying to find out the limit for a function of two variables, then since the independent variable is 2 there, so independent variable will be over a two dimensional plane. So if you consider a point in two dimensional plane and you want to consider the nearer points inside a neighborhood, then from the nearer points you can approach to the point in two dimension in several ways. So in order to show that the limit exists, so this method that I have studied earlier will not be followed. That means uh, if you want to show whether limit exists, you will not be able to show by the method of path dependence. You need to use the epsilon delta definition. So if I get time, I will be discussing it later. I will be discussing it later. Now, here if you want to show that the limit doesn't exist, then it is sufficient to show that the limiting values are different if you consider different paths, because here infinite number of paths are there through which you can approach towards the given point from the nearer points. So if you can show that the limiting value depends on the path, like the function of two real variables, then the limit doesn't exist. So here z equals to x plus iy and z bar equals to x minus iy. So z tends to 0, that means xy tends to 0, 0. So we can approach towards the point 0 by the family of straight lines which passes through the origin. So we are considering here y equals to mx as the family of straight lines which passes through the origin. So we are not taking only two paths to show that the limiting values are different in that two paths and limit doesn't exist. Rather, here we are taking infinite number of paths to this family of straight line. So if you put here x y equals to mx in that equation, then either this will be converted to the function of y alone or the function of x alone. So here we are substituting y by x. So this limiting value will be dependent on x only. So this will be limit x tends to 0, x minus imx by x plus imx. So x will be we can take common x from numerator and denominator, and since x tends to 0 but x is not equals to 0, so we can eliminate the value of x from numerator and denominator, and this value will be 1 minus im by 1 plus I. Now if you take the path as y equals to x, that means m equals to 1, you will be getting one limiting value. Now if you put m equals to 2, we will be getting another limiting value. That means if we want to approach towards the point 0, 0 or z equals to 0 through different paths, then limiting value being dependent on the particular path will be dependent on m. That means the limiting value will be different if you approach through different sort of paths. That's why here the limit doesn't exist. So this is the same thing we can use actually that we have used in showing the non-existence of limit for function of two real variables in first semester that you have used. Is that clear? Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Is it okay? Others, please respond whether you have all understood this or not. But if you can understand, if you have understood this once, then you can remember it. You won't forget it. Is it is it clear to all? Have you all
Yes, sir.
understood? Okay. Then there are two problems. I'll be sharing this PPT in the Google Classroom. Then uh, you can try to solve the problem, and if you can't, then you will ask me. Then there comes the continuity. What do you mean by the continuity? Let us consider it for function of one real variable. So let us given a function y equals to fx at x equals to x0. This is not defined. So discontinuity means if there is a break in the locus of the function, then it is called as discontinuous function. That means there is a break. So we need to take interval. First we need to check the existence of limit. We are taking interval, and whenever we are approaching from the left hand side of that function and that point where the function doesn't exist towards this point, then we can approximate the graph from the left hand side towards this point. Then whenever we are approaching from the right hand side of the point towards this point, then actually we are gradually taking or approximating the path from the right hand side, and if they are coming closer, we say that the approximate value will exist. So since the exact value doesn't exist here, So that's why the function is not directly defined. But limiting value means there is an approximated value. That means from the left hand side we can approximate, from the right hand side we can approximate, but they are not coinciding. Otherwise the function will be directly defined. So if they are coming closer at this point, then we can consider this as a limiting value, this point as a limiting value, this is a limiting value of the function at the given point. Now if the left hand limit and right hand limit exist and are equal, that means limit x tends to 0, x0 fx exists, and if this is equals to the functional value at the given point, what is the functional value? Functional value is this at the given point, then we say that the function is continuous. That means this is approximating towards this is approximating towards this. Now if the functional values are same, then they will be joined actually, that means the gap will be filled up, then this function is said to be continuous. That means there will be no break in the graph. Otherwise if it is not possible to do so, then we say that the function is discontinuous at the given point. Similarly, for the function of complex variable also, if the limiting value at the point z0 exists for the function fz and equals to f of z0, then we say that the function is continuous at the point z equals to z0. Okay.
Yes, sir.
What are the properties of continuous functions? So the properties are same as you did it earlier for function of one real variable and two real variable. That means if fz and dz are two functions which are continuous at a point z0, then their sum of two functions and subtraction of two functions will also be continuous at the point z0. Then product of two functions will also be continuous at the point z0. And quotient of two functions will also be continuous at the point z0, provided the functional value of g at the point z0 is not equals to 0. Otherwise it will not be defined. And the fourth point is that the composition of two functions f of gz will be continuous at the point z0 if g is continuous at z0 and f is continuous at g of z0, because the composition of two functions means g is mapping the point z to gz and f is mapping the point gz to f of g of z. That is the composition of functions. So g need to be continuous at z0 and f need to be continuous at the point g of z0. Then the function entire composition of two functions will be continuous at the point g of z. Is that clear? Have you understood this fourth one?
Yes, sir.
Then here also for the continuous function the same property will hold. That means if a function of complex variable fz, which is real part uxy and imaginary part vxy, will be continuous at the given point z0 if both the real part and imaginary part separately are continuous at the point z0, that means x0 comma y0. Otherwise this will not be continuous. So in order to make the function fz continuous at the given point z0, both the real part of the function and imaginary part of that function are required to be continuous at the given point x0 comma y0 separate. So these two properties for limit as well as for continuity will be valid if we consider the function of complex variable only, otherwise it will not be valid. In this problem, so that the function, that is a quotient function, is continuous for all the values of z outside mod z equals to 2. So here we need to show that the function fz is given and z square plus 1 by z square minus 3z plus 2. So this is a quotient of two functions phi z psi z. So you need to show that this is continuous for all z outside mod z equals to 2. So what does it represent geometrically? Mod z equals to 2.
The position from the origin is 2.
Now what is the geometrical significance? This will represent circle with center at 0, 0 and radius 2 unit. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So that means we are considering circle with center at 0, 0 and radius as 2 unit. So we need to show that this function fz, the cosine function, will be continuous for all the values of z outside that circle. That means the function may have some discontinuous point inside that circle, but outside that circle it will be always continuous. We need to show that. So while we are taking the cosine function, as per the definition of continuity, we know that the cosine function will be continuous if this is continuous and this is continuous separately, as well as the denominator is not equals to 0 at some given point. So first we need to find out where the denominator becomes 0. So denominator z square minus 3z plus 2 equals to 0. That means if you solve it, you will be getting z equals to 2 and 1. So z means x plus iy. So x plus iy is 2. That means here imaginary part is 0. So the point will be actually 1 0 and 2 0. So z equals to 2 and 1 means the imaginary part of both the complex numbers are 0. So that will be 1 0 and 2 0. So at these 2 points only the denominator function is not defined. That's why the cosine function will not be continuous. So now we need to identify the position of 1 0 and 2 0. Now 2 0 is here over the circle, this one, and 1 0 is inside the circle. So only at these 2 points, since the denominator function is not defined, so the quotient will not be continuous. So outside that circle, all the functions are outside the circle the quotient function is defined. So that's why it will be obviously continuous. So here, since the quotient function is not defined at the point 1 0 2 0, which is inside or on the circle, that's why outside the circle at all these given points, since the function is defined, so obviously it will be continuous. Was that clear? So we need to show that only. Is it clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in today's class, I have discussed up to this. So there are few points, a few problems. You will try to solve while I will be sharing this in the Google Classroom. If you can't solve, you will be asking me and be trying to solve this. So in today's class, I have discussed up to this. The next class I will be discussing the differentiability of complex valued functions. So let me take your attendance manually first, then I will be sharing the exam codes. Rule number 1,
Present, sir.
2,
Present, sir.
3, 4,
Present, sir.
5,
Present, sir.
6,
Present, sir.
7,
Present, sir.
8,
Present, sir.
9,
Yes, sir.
10, 11,
Present, sir.
12,
Present, sir.
13, 13, 14, 15,
Yes, sir.
16,
Present, sir.
17,
Present, sir.
18,
Sir, 17 present.
Present, sir.
given, 19, Let me see the exam codes. This is exam code. Just let me share the link. So this is the link. So just click the link and give the exam code and your full enrollment ID and is the class test. So just
Sir,
someone
have you marked me present, sir, roll number 1?
have you responded? Yeah, you have responded though.
Yes, sir, he responded.
Yeah, you are marked. So just someone please check and let me know whether you can access the exam right now or not.
Access it.
Sorry.
Access the example.
Okay. Thank you. So just finish the exam before the next class. So thank you all for attending today's class. Have a nice day. So I'm leaving. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.